The United States, it's a land of contrasts and diversity, and the area around the city of Lancaster is a perfect example of that. Here live the Amish, a religious people who follow the traditions of their ancestors and live as people did 300 years ago. They do not use smartphones or electricity, travel by horse-drawn carriages, dress modestly, and live a plain lifestyle. Can they really keep their 18th century customs in the 21st century? Or has progress taken over, making many of the well-known facts myths? I've come to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania for 6 weeks to see the Amish way of life with my own eyes and even stay in one of their homes. In this video, I'll try to understand how they manage to exist in a modern world full of technological innovations and government regulations. The city of Lancaster is often used as a synonym to describe one of the regions where the Amish people live. They do not reside right within the city limits. Their communities are settled around Lancaster in the countryside. We've just arrived at one of the villages to find out what makes them known all around the globe. The Amish are a sect in a classic non-demonized meaning of the word. They are Christians, and their Bible is the same as that of the other Christian confessions. However, what sets them apart is their strict and unwavering adherence to rules, doctrines, and the so-called Ordnung, an unwritten set of guidelines. Moreover, they live as people did at the dawn of this faith in the 18th century. They follow tradition and maintain a simple life without electricity or other benefits of the modern world and technological progress. Let me say right off the bat that there are several branches of Amish, and everything I talk about today pertains to the Old Order Amish who live in Lancaster County. The Amish community in Lancaster is not only the most populated in the country, but also is the oldest in North America. The first settlement was established around 1760. All the Amish people are clustered in the communities. They do not live entirely separated or isolated from the rest of the world. Amish and non-Amish houses are intermingled.
See the clothes all hanging out. If you see the Amish, if you see clothes hanging out, you know it's Amish.
An Amish home can be easily identified by the clothes hanging outside to dry, as they do not use washing machines or, especially, dryers. In contrast, Mennonites, who live similarly but are slightly more modern, dry their laundry in machines. Everyone else Amish call English, and no matter who the person is by faith or origin, and their attitude towards the people outside the community is moderately positive. They will not do anything aggressive to you, and even might wave back on the road. But at the same time, they will not invite you over, share everything about themselves, or let you take photos or videos, especially portraits. So, not only do the Amish and the English live intermixed, but they also do business together and help each other. Just as the English do their shopping at the Amish stores, the Amish also go to English stores. To be more precise, they do not just go, but drive their horse-drawn carriages, buggies. And here is the example how two completely different worlds coexist together. The parking lot at a Costco supermarket. Everything here seems to be normal, except one little thing that you will not notice at the stores in the different regions. And I'm speaking about these stalls that are designated areas for the horses with the buggies, where the horses can take a rest while their owners shop for groceries and other stuff at the store. Traditional crafts and agriculture are the backbone of Amish economy, and while I was driving, I also was wondering what these towers are needed for, and it appeared they are corn silos towers where they keep the food for the cattle. That's where this lovely smell comes from. Despite mentioning the smell, I just want to point out how incredibly clean and neat everything is here. Every lawn is mowed, there is no clutter around the houses, and every single field is really well tended. The Amish do everything by hand, without any mechanization, or at least they try to. They work literally from dawn to dusk because it takes a lot of time to manually handle such a huge job. They grow vegetables and fruits, produce dairy and meat products, make canned goods, and create wooden furniture and other handcrafted items, which they sell at local markets and even across the country. The Amish avoid all the modern technologies, which are mechanization, electricity, TV, internet, cars and even bicycles. And it's not because they live an ascetic life and just like to be uncomfortable. No, it's the essential part of their faith and the ordnung. They believe that modern technology can distract you from the really important aspects of your life, which are family, faith, and the community. And the ordnung forbids owning cars and modern devices, getting divorced, running for political office, or suing. Cars and bikes can allow you to travel far from the family. Television and the internet can replace family and bring negative influences. Electricity will supply all of these smart devices, and together these things can destroy their community. Of course, the influence of the modern world on Amish life is just inevitable. The necessity to do business with the outside world forces them to adapt their businesses for collaboration with non-Amish to keep their family over the float.
The Amish population is growing rapidly, but we will talk about the demographics a bit later. Due to their increasing population, density, and the limited land, they can no longer rely solely on their own food grown on their soil. The old order Amish living in Lancaster County are relatively liberal regarding new technology if we are comparing to the ultra-conservative ones in Ohio, but if we compare them with the new order Amish, the Amish of Lancaster County still can be considered as an old school. It's worth mentioning that although we are using terms like the community and commune, just want to be clear, they are not sharing their harvest equally among each other. No. And they are not working in the field the same day with the whole community. Every single farm and every single family as a separate and autonomous unit, and the whole idea of the Amish and their way of life is to stay as independent as possible. But of course they are more than happy to trade and exchange goods among the community. The Amish are divided into several branches, with a split between the New Order and Old Order Amish, occurring in the 1960s due to different views on modern technology and other issues. The Old Order Amish, the main group from which other branches have split, adhere strictly to traditions. In contrast, the New Order Amish are slightly more lenient, allowing some modern technologies like telephones and being more open to interaction with the outside world. Local Amish are strictly prohibited from using milk tanks, tractors and rototillers. Instead, they work the land with horses. Powered lawnmowers are partially banned, but only the big ones like these. Smaller ones are allowed. As I mentioned earlier, for income they sell their goods and services at markets and even online. However, despite this, the Amish try to ensure that the new technologies do not penetrate too deeply into their daily lives. For example, if you need a phone and computer for business, you can use them, but not inside the home. Set up a special outbuilding like this, or even a separate office. Alternatively, hire someone from outside to create a website, launch advertisements, and find clients. Nevertheless, some technologies are strictly forbidden without any exceptions, such as televisions and smartphones. If a century ago hardly anyone knew about the Amish, some decades ago they considered as a sect strange people with odd and weird traditions, now Amish and their way of life have become a tourist attraction. Lancaster County attracts millions of tourists each year. In 2023, nearly 10 million people visited the area, contributing over $2.5 billion to the local economy. This influx of visitors plays a crucial role in supporting the county's businesses and communities, making the industry one of the most significant parts of the county's income. Some Amish are involved in the tourism industry, selling visitors their handmade goods or serving tour groups. They run bed and breakfast inns and offer buggy rides. Tourism is controversial among the Amish. Some see it as harmful to the community, while others view it as beneficial because it provides income both individual families and the community. However, the Bible and the Ordnung do not prohibit this, so the decision to work with tourists is left to each family. Speaking of tourism, there is a lot to see indeed in Lancaster County. Local farms, museums, souvenir stores, amusement parks, and guided tours. But to be honest, these tourist spots lack the soul, and you hardly find any Amish people around this area. So let's go back to the countryside where they just live their life. We
could not miss the opportunity to live in a real Amish house. But the thing is that there are so many guest houses over there, but the problem with them is that you cannot actually live and interact with a host. So we searched a lot and we found one and only one retired couple here in Lancaster where you can actually live in the house, in the same house where they are living. You can share the dinner and you can ask thousands of questions, which I will be doing hopefully. I'm so excited to do that. And one more thing, you cannot have the electricity or Wi-Fi, that's why I have these two power banks, and hopefully I will be able to capture something interesting. In this video, I will not have time to cover everything I learned during my visit, so please let me know in the comments if you would like to see more detailed vlog about our couple of days with an Amish family. Talking about electricity, it's worth mentioning that they prohibited to use electricity from public utility lines, but not electricity itself. They try not to rely on centralized systems. However, if you generate electricity from solar panels or propane and can supply your own electricity, you're free to use it. The homeowners have their own generator to power the refrigerator. For lighting in the evening, they use battery-powered lamps, which are charged in a special place. They use a fireplace for heating and just open windows instead of AC. So in the summer you simply lie down and wait for the air to become cooler and fresher. The Amish find themselves in an environmental paradox. On one hand, they really live eco-friendly lifestyle. But on the other, they are often criticized for using generators and wood-burning stoves in their homes. However, comparing to the average person, their carbon footprint is significantly smaller. Here's an eco-buggy. The price for this particular model is $3,800, and the buggy has this interesting rear view mirror. Then we've got turn signals and brakes, which are traced to the wheels. As for maintenance, as far as I understand, you only need to change the horseshoes and the wheels themselves. And that's basically it. Such transportation in the 21st century, without loans, credit scores, insurance, and so on. See, the carriage coverage is gray, right? Why it's gray and why sometimes you can see black buggies? This is how you can distinguish between the Amish and Mennonites. In Lancaster County, we saw very few black carriages, because Mennonites mostly travel by car. Earlier, there was one more difference between the New Order and Old Order Amish. Look, the door now is a slider, and previously the Old Order Amish had a roll-up canvas. They rolled up and down to get in the buggy, but then they just borrowed the slider from the New Order Amish, and now all buggies have a slider door. These wheels, they are pretty big, they are made of steel, which is the feature of the Old Order Amish. They are larger to reduce the bumpiness on the road when the pavement is not good. There is another one, and it doesn't have a top as you can see, and it's only $500. And honestly, I can't see why it's just $500. And this buggy has an air heater. It's just super fancy. You can see inside from here, a nice interior, and it even has a speedometer. Such carriages can speed up to 20 miles if the horse goes downhill. There is a little trick in the rule that they cannot own and drive a car. Driving is forbidden indeed, but being inside a car is not. There are special people among the English who are working with them, driving them for shopping, errands, and taking kids to school. I had the chance to work as one of these English drivers, and I first drove the hosts home to settle us in. And then we all went to the bank and to the farm, and it was really fun. I didn't mind at all. I was very happy that hosts liked my car. Ben had never driven a car, and he said that if he needed to buy one, he would choose a car like mine.
Yeah, I don't see any around quite like this. Right?
Yeah.
But I like it.
Thank you.
In addition to buggies, they also use a kick bike or scooter. You can see men, women, and young people riding them. Regular bicycles with pedals are not allowed because, according to Ben, they can get you from point A to point B too quickly, and life should be slow and deliberate.
It's faster than I thought. Much faster.
Yeah, a lot of people say
Just
that.
one kick and you're up to speed.
That's a lot if you're going downhill.
Oh, okay.
However, this doesn't stop them from using trains and even ships. The Amish do travel, especially those without large farms or those who are retired. Our host has traveled all over the country, and they even went on a Caribbean cruise. A significant number of Amish go to Florida for the winter. I've seen them at local markets, but never knew they could be snowbirds. Now let's move on the backstory on where these distinctive communities came from. Amish arrived in America in 18th century fleeing religious persecution. The history of the Amish spans over 330 years, tracing back to the Reformation era of the 16th century in Europe, to be more specific, in Switzerland. Let's take a look at a simple chart to understand which branch of Christianity the Amish belong to. If we go through the branches of Christianity, then 4 branches stem from it. And if we go down into Catholicism, then in the era of the Reformation, Protestants split from them. And within the Protestants, there is another new level, divided into 4 denominations, among which Anabaptists is showing up for the first time. Anabaptism is opposed to baptism, a fusion of Lutheranism and Anglicanism. Finally, at the last level, the Anabaptists are divided into several movements, and this is where the Amish religion arises. Mennonites are their closest relatives in faith. The religious ancestors of the Amish Anabaptists opposed infant baptism, arguing that baptism should be a conscious decision made by an adult man. This stance injured both Catholic and Protestant churches, leading to a brutal persecution. This forced many of the Amish people hide in rural areas and operate underground. In 1693, Swiss Anabaptist Jacob Amann proposed a series of reforms to revive the movement. Amann insisted on strict spiritual discipline, prohibiting the trimming of beards and the wearing of fashionable clothing. These reforms led to a split among the Anabaptists. Amann's followers became known as the Amish. Although the Amish believe in core Christian doctrines, their spirituality is shaped by their unique interpretation of the Bible. They emphasize the practical application of Jesus' teachings in daily life and adhere strictly to commandments. But why the USA, where they sailed for several weeks? The Amish came to America because of the holy experiment of William Penn, the founder of this state, after whom it's still named. Penn received a large tract of land from King Charles II, both of whom were English, in the late 17th century. He aimed to create a free colony on this land, and freedom at that time primarily meant freedom of religion. Pennsylvania offered exactly what the Amish and other minorities were seeking: the ability to practice their faith without government interference. Additionally, the fertile lands of Pennsylvania provided excellent opportunities for farming, which was also crucial for the Amish. The Amish do not have professional pastors like other Christian denominations. Instead, their communities are led by elders who are chosen from among the members, and these elders are responsible for conducting services and maintaining the discipline within the community. Persecutions in Europe deeply influenced the Amish worldview. They strengthened the belief in the need for separation between church and society. This separation is a key part of their ordnung. The Amish practice mutual aid, encouraging the community to help each other in tough times, and they reject government social welfare and commercial insurance. They have a form of internal medical insurance. They make contributions to the church, and if an emergency arises requiring hospitalization, the church covers most of the medical bills. For instance, our host once fell from a horse and suffered a serious injury. He had the surgery, and while he paid 20% of the bill, the church covered the rest. Worship services are held in the homes of the community members, rotating among them, and they include hymn singing, sermons, and prayers. Their services lack altars, candles, or stained glass, and they sing ancient German songs a cappella. They still speak Pennsylvania Dutch, a dialect of German language, among themselves. But they also speak English fluently, so they use 3 languages in total: German for church, Pennsylvania Dutch for everyday conversations, and English for communication with the outside world. Earlier I mentioned that in the modern world, the Amish can no longer sustain themselves solely through agriculture and have had to diversify their activities. They have really large families that have become impossible to support by living as they did a couple of centuries ago. Nowadays, the average Amish family has between 5 to 8 children, and one of our new friend's daughter's family has as many as 11 children. In the past, higher mortality rates meant that not all the children survived to adulthood, justifying high birth rates. However, in the modern world, the Amish have access to contemporary medicine and the very progress that they typically avoid. This has made the Amish one of the fastest growing populations in the world, doubling every 20 years. In 2000, there were 178,000 Amish, and by 2023, their population had grown to 377,000. In just 23 years, their population more than doubled. During the same period, the total population of the United States increased by only 18%.
Do you know all the names of your grandchildren?
Yeah, but I can't rattle them up. Let's figure it out. My wife could.
Now just think about it. These people are offsprings of just few hundred first settlers. There were about 200 people that arrived to the US initially. 100 years ago there were about 5,000 people, and now there are 377 people. Considering that they form families within the community and very rarely marry outsiders, they have a higher occurrence of certain genetic defects caused by the so-called founder effect. I really see that people resemble each other. I cannot show this out of respect for those people, but just take my word for it. But I discovered an interesting fact about how people with different genetic backgrounds join them. In addition to their large families, the Amish often adopt children from the outside world, raising them according to their customs. This is the school where Amish children study up to the 8th grade. It usually consists of 1, maybe 2 rooms and 1 teacher teaching all the subjects. They study reading, mathematics, spelling, history and a bit of geography. All the lessons conducted in English. Each class has about 25 to 30 students. In the overall Lancaster County, there are about 300 such one-room schools. Until the 1950s, Amish children attended public schools, but growing pressure to conform to the educational system and curriculum was seen as a threat to their culture, and the Amish feared that their children would be exposed to progressive subjects and would want to continue their education beyond what was deemed necessary for their community. Consequently, many parents began withdrawing their children from public schools, and for refusing to send their children to standard schools, many of Amish parents were even arrested. This led the communities to decide that opening their own schools would be the best compromise. Authorities allow them to transfer to their own schools, but maintain the requirement for students to attend classes until the 9th grade. As I mentioned, Amish schools provided the education up to the 8th grade, which meant that to obtain a diploma you would need to go to the public school, right? But due to their lower level of education, children usually could not make this transition successfully. And eventually, after prolonged negotiations, a resolution was reached in the 1970s. The state and the Amish agreed that Amish and Mennonite children would be exempt from the requirement to attend school beyond the 8th grade. This agreement was made to ensure that schooling would not interfere with their work and religious development, especially since their Rumspringa period begins around the age of 15. And I will explain more about Rumspringa in just a few. One of these Amish schools was the site of a tragic incident in 2006. A 32-year-old milk truck driver entered the school and opened fire, killing 5 girls. This event shocked not only the Amish community and local residents, but also the entire country. One of the reasons this incident drew significant public attention was the Amish response. On the same day as the tragedy, the father of one of the victims called for forgiveness for the shooter, which the community granted. They even extended support to the shooter's family, recognizing them as victims of the same tragedy. The original school was later demolished, and a new one, called New Hope School, was built at a different location. Unfortunately, while not as violent but still very unpleasant incidents occur fairly often, and the interactions between Amish and English are not always limited
to neighborly or tourist relationships. The Amish are being harassed, with people kicking and scaring their horses because they know that the Amish person will never provide a response to the person against the person. The ordinance forbids them from aggression and taking any legal action because even the police call can be considered as an aggression against the person. Crimes occur not only between the Amish and the English, but also within their communities. The most common offenses are drunk driving and sexual abuse. The number of accusations against the Amish and Mennonites is increasing, primarily due to more accessible communication and the internet, which bring these crimes to light, preventing the community from hiding them without involving the police. These crimes are often committed by teenagers who are allowed to do whatever they want without adhering to the ordinance. And now, eventually, let's learn more about this period known as Rumspringa. Despite the significant religious strictness, Anabaptism doesn't force people to accept their faith directly. Of course, their lifestyle heavily influences on their decision, but it's important to note that the Amish embrace the faith as adults, capable of making their own choices. And usually it's happening between the ages of 16 to 22. And this insistence on adult baptism was a fundamental part of the Anabaptist split. From adolescence until they embrace the faith, young Amish experience a period called Rumspringa. During Rumspringa, young people step out from under parental control but are not yet baptized, allowing them to venture into the outside world, use modern conveniences, and engage in typical teenage activities. After this period, they decide what to do with their lives. Not everyone takes advantage of these opportunities, and not all the Amish groups practice Rumspringa, but some teenagers do leave the community to explore the world. One might wonder, who would choose to live a life of freedom where you don't have to ride horse-drawn carriages every day and there are no cow poop smells, where you have the access to all the cool things like movies, alcohol, YouTube, cars, and many other instant dopamine-inducing pleasures. However, about 90% of young people return, then get baptized, marry, and live the same life as their parents, grandparents, and other ancestors. Those who choose to leave the community may lose contact with their families entirely, but this depends on the strictness of the community and the individual family. Amish can only marry after baptism and only to people of the same faith. Divorce is not permitted. Ben told me that 2 of his 6 children left the community and now live separately, but they still keep in touch. Both families visit each other. Ben's family visits them in Montana, and his son's family comes to Lancaster. The Amish do not wear jewelry, including wedding rings, because it draws too much attention, including attention to the body. According to ordinance, they must maintain simplicity and modesty as an opposite. But still, like everyone else, they need to understand who is single and who is married, so how can they determine this? Married women wear white bonnets, while unmarried wear black bonnets, which they start wearing right after school graduation. Just as bonnets serve this function for women, beards do for men. Married men wear beards but without mustaches, while single men are clean-shaven. Appearance is influenced not only by marital status, but also by lifestyle. Due to their emphasis on simplicity and modesty, their clothing does not have zippers, which are considered too advanced. Buttons are only worn if they match the color of the clothing with no bright or shiny elements, as these are deemed too attention-grabbing. The fabric is always plain, without patterns or designs. Of course, everything depends on the community, and some Amish dress differently and, for example, wear buttons. But in the communities of Lancaster County, customs are quite strict in this regard. The Amish are pacifists, and this even affects their appearance. As I mentioned earlier, men do not wear mustaches because they are considered a military accessory. This tradition dates back to the times before World War I, when military men commonly wore mustaches. The bowl haircut became traditional due to its simplicity. Men must have short hair, usually cut every 2 weeks. The bowl cut is easy to do at home, and their wives typically cut their hair, just like mine does.
Now with your haircut, and now you got an Amish hat, now you really look like an Amish.
I need to buy black pants. That's what I
That
understand.
and you need to give her a beard.
Oh, my beard will be not greatly looking.
Because you are married.
Yeah, right, you're right. Women, by the way, are forbidden from cutting their hair and do not use scissors or razors. They also do not wear makeup, as they believe in preserving the natural appearance given by God.
If after watching this video you thought, oh, how great they live and I also want to become an Amish, I must say it can be challenging. They do not engage in missionary work and do not seek new community members in general. The Amish very rarely accept new members into their community and faith. Only about few hundreds people have been able to join them throughout the whole history. And since the 1990s, only about 20 people have joined them, and all of whom were Russian Mennonites. These people came from a very similar faith, as both Amish and Mennonites are Anabaptists and live pretty much same lifestyle, although Mennonites are less strict about the new technology and clothing. Joining an Amish community is difficult, not because of barriers set by the Amish, but because most people find it hard to adapt to their way of life. Learning Pennsylvania Dutch, the language spoken at home, is particularly challenging for newcomers. As a society that lives separately from the majority, the Amish have faced challenges not only in the past, which led them to leave Europe, but also in the present. Whether you live in the USA or not, you've likely heard about the high taxes, strict income reporting rules, various insurance requirements, and of course expensive healthcare. So how do the Amish manage to deal with all of these while keeping their distance from the government? Over their time in North America, the Amish have navigated several conflicts and successfully resolved many of them, including issues related to military service, pensions, child labor, tax filing, and even minor disputes like manure on roads. For example, in Kentucky, a law requires horses to wear special horse diapers, but not all Amish comply with this requirement, leading to frequent fines. Like all the citizens and tax residents of the United States, the Amish fill out tax returns and pay taxes, including federal, state, and sales taxes. However, since they do not receive any social security benefits by agreement with authorities, they do not pay social security taxes that fund the pension. And they believe that the social security is a strong dependency on the government, which they typically try to avoid. Avoidance is a general theme in the relationships between Amish and the government. They would rather prefer live without all this paperwork and rules, but unfortunately they are forced to obtain passports and driver's licenses, which of course require photographs, something they prefer not to do in general. Many Amish individuals obtain regular IDs with photos, but some refuse to be photographed, even for official documents. The US government has made an exception for them, allowing travel to Canada or Mexico without a photograph. They travel there for business or tourism. Similarly, Old Order Amish and Mennonites with Canadian citizenship can enter the US on the same basis. The Amish are often criticized for using child labor on their farms, and the authorities argue that even though they can isolate themselves and their children from the outside world, it doesn't mean that they can break the law. However, the Pennsylvanian law is quite lenient in this regard. The children under 14 indeed cannot be hired for any work except for those working on a private farm or in a house, and it means that the Amish are not violating any law. Children under 16 are protected only from hazardous work in sawmills and other risky industries, which carry significant fines for violators. While farm work is generally not considered safe, the Amish acknowledge that it has become even more dangerous with the use of large machinery, such as loaders. To make these machines safer, they install rear-view cameras to avoid accidentally injuring anyone. More often than being criticized for child abuse, animal rights advocates hold the Amish accountable for their treatment of animals, particularly horses and dogs. Horses are used as work tools, while dogs are frequently bred for sale. There are notorious instances where Amish people dispose of unwanted animals, such as when a breed is impure or puppies don't sell. If you've lived in a rural area, you might not be shocked by stories of men drowning unwanted puppies. Unfortunately, these cases do occur, and even if they don't end tragically, many animals can indeed be kept in poor conditions. The Amish do not view animals in a particularly human light, treating them primarily as tools for work. From an economic perspective, it is beneficial for them to maintain healthy animals, so they do take care of them as they would with livestock, but not as pets. However, if an animal can no longer be productive or generate income and instead incurs costs for upkeep and medical care, it won't remain on the farm for long. I was very curious to learn how much the Amish are aware of what's going on in the world and the United States and how much they know about the politics. And it turns out they know quite a bit even without TV and radio. The Amish typically do not vote, with only a small percentage participating in presidential and local elections. However, they generally lean towards supporting Republicans due to their conservative views, or to be more precise, they oppose Democrats. They wish to maintain their autonomy and are not keen on paying taxes that fund welfare programs, because they work really hard for their money and oppose abortion and sex education in schools, and of course are against LGBT rights. Even if they do not actively vote for Republicans, they pray for their win. Pennsylvania and Ohio are swing states, and among the 6 swing states in total, they can determine pretty much outcome of every election, because they can swing either Democratic or Republican. And also these 2 states are home for the largest Amish communities, and because the Amish people are the fastest growing population in the country, and also these people hold the very conservative views, they become a target group for political campaigning, and there is a significant effort to encourage them to actually vote for Republicans, not only pray for them. Before coming here, I only knew the most common facts about the Amish, and this knowledge was very superficial. And when you watch YouTube videos or shows, you may think that these people are quirky people with a strange religion, living as outcasts and afraid of the modernity and people. But when you start visit them and interacting with them, it appears that many are happy to chat, and they can pretty much explain everything using the logic. Of course, this logic is based on the Bible, but it helps you understand why they behave the way they do. This helps you see the world differently. They are not strange, and neither are we. It's not necessary to conform to the idea that it's 2024, so you need to follow the latest trends, use all the new technologies, and argue passionately about whether the world is heading towards a third world war because of right-wing or left-wing control. You can live completely outside of this context, prioritizing your own life and your families, while placing the outside world second. Like any phenomenon, the Amish way of life has its pros, cons, contradictions and paradoxes, but I saw so many more positives that the negatives seemed insignificant. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the Amish way of life, and if you want to live like them for at least some time, because I personally do. Please also hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing to my channel. See you in the next video. Bye!